It's time for Rabbi Minkowicz's weekly Torah lesson. Here with his spiritual perspective and insight, Rabbi Minkowicz.
Welcome to this week's Torah lesson. This week's Torah portion is Parsha SHLACH. The question of the week is, how do we brighten up our materialistic life? So in this week's Torah portion, we learn about the laws of the libations. Now what is that? In the temple, the Jewish people brought sacrifices, but they also brought libations, different things that were poured on the altar. Oil, water, wine, etc. Now, what's interesting is that the law is that before they had a temple, people brought sacrifices. Not in the temple. But once the temple was erected, you couldn't bring sacrifices elsewhere. But sacrifices they already had before. Libations, they were only allowed to bring in the temple. So the question is, why is that? So the Rebbe explains a phenomenal idea, and he says like this. There's life in the desert, and there's life in Israel. Life in the desert is a spiritual life. Life in Israel is a materialistic, physical life. Sacrifices you can do in both places, in the desert and in Israel. When it comes to libations, only in the desert, only in Israel, not in the desert. However, what's interesting is, Rebbe explains, that the mitzvahs, when they compare saying Shema, Kriya Shema, to a sacrifice, and that's something which, on a spiritual level, you do in both places. When it comes to tefillin, they compare more to the land of Israel, like the libations. In other words, when it comes to sacrifice, when it comes to spirituality, that's all great, that's all wonderful. We're in the desert. But if you want to do a mitzvah, which means drawing down godliness into this world, you would need to do that only in Israel. And as a sacrifice, it means you want to yearn to God. You want to go up to God. That you can do anywhere. But where do we have the mitzvah of bringing libations, which means we're drawing down the energy into the materialistic world and elevating it? That's only where in the land of Israel, like tefillin is versus Shema. So in other words, the answer to the question, how do we draw down godliness into the materialistic world? By doing physical mitzvot. And every time we do a mitzvah, we draw God down into the materialistic world, and through that we brighten up our materialistic life. This week's Torah lesson is in memory of Baruch ben Aryeh and Shlomo ben Yosef. May their souls be elevated by the Torah we're studying in their memory. Thanks so much for joining us for our weekly Torah lesson. For more information, please see our website.